It's a tough time right now, and a lot of people are praying, and people who don't normally pray are praying, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. They might think, well, what have we got to lose? But I'm glad that people are praying, and God is listening. That is a question. Does God hear our prayers? Does he answer our prayers? Well, George Bailey wasn't much of a praying man, but he was at the end of his rope. He was in a real jam. He was facing scandal, financial ruin, and jail. And it wasn't really his fault, just a mistake that Uncle Billy made. Nevertheless, he was the one who would be culpable. So he gets angry with his family, he storms out, and he goes to his bar, his local bar, and tries to drown his sorrows. But he realizes that's not going to work, and so he prays. And he says something like, Dear Father in heaven, I'm not much of a praying man, but if you're up there and you can hear me, show me the way. Show me the way. Because I'm at the end of my rope. And people had told him he was worth more dead than alive. He had an insurance policy, and that was all that he had. Anyway, somebody stood next to him at the bar, realizes who he is, and smacks him in the jaw. So he gets a busted lip. And George thinks, well, if that's God's answer to prayer, I don't think I'll do much praying. But that wasn't God's answer to prayer. The answer to prayer came in the form of an angelic visitor called Clarence. And George is about to jump in the river. But Clarence jumps in. His rescuer jumps in order to be rescued so that he can actually rescue George Bailey, which is a really cool thing. And they talk while they're drying off afterwards, and on the bridge, in the guy's cabin on the bridge. And George happens to say, I wish I'd never been born. It would have been better if I'd never been born. And Clarence thinks that's a brilliant idea. I'll make that happen. So that's what happens. And George all of a sudden doesn't have a busted lip, doesn't have blood on his lip. His clothes are dry. He's got Zuzu's petals in his pocket. They've gone. Because there's no Zuzu, his child, one of his children. George has a wife, Mary, and 4 kids. And so now he gets to see the town that he thinks is his home, but it's not his home because he never existed. And the town that he was born in and grew up in, Bedford Falls, is now Pottersville, and the difference is heaven and hell. And he gets to see people who he knows, but they don't know him. And they're completely different because they've never had him in their lives. And Clarence explains that he doesn't have a brother, Harry, because Harry died because George wasn't there to save Harry. And similarly, hundreds and hundreds of men in the war lost their lives because Harry wasn't there to save them. He was an ace fighter pilot, and he wasn't there to protect those men on the ship. Mr. Gower is the Bedford Falls pharmacist, and he gets news that his son has been killed in the war. So he's in a shock, and he prescribes the wrong medicine. So the patient is going to get medicine that would kill him, and Gower would be sent to jail. But George is able to intervene, and but if he's never been born, he isn't able to intervene, and so Gower is a broken man who used to be in jail for murder. And Bailey Park, which is what George built through Bailey Savings and Loan, doesn't exist. It's Potter's Field. And he's most horrified when he meets his wife Mary, who's a beautiful young gal, Donna Reed. and she's just an aging spinster working in a library. He's just mortified, and so he's back on the bridge, and instead of wanting to kill himself, he wants his life back. Take me back, take me back, take me back.
Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me! Get me back to my wife and kids! Help me, Clarence, please! Please! I want to live again!
And so he gets taken back, and he has a busted lip again. He's got Zuzu's petals, and he's got Bedford Falls back. It's a brilliant, brilliant story, and it's wonderfully told in that film, It's a Wonderful Life. Made in 1946, a very good year, I can assure you. Lots of good things happened that year. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, didn't win any. Mainly because it came up against another film called The Best Years of Our Lives, which won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and it just cleared up. So It's a Wonderful Life got nothing. But people today remember It's a Wonderful Life. Not that many people remember The Best Years of Our Lives. And so I wonder, why is it that It's a Wonderful Life has the durability that it does? Why is it a seasonal favourite? Every Christmas it's shown on every television station. And people celebrate George's homecoming and Mary rallying people round and singing Hark the Herald Angels Sings. And it's a wonderful climax. And Clarence, who's been sent by God to help George, gets his wings. He's no longer angel second class. It's a lovely film. I want to know why has that endured? Well, I think it's because God wanted it to. Because it's a film which shows God as being somebody who wants us to pray, listens to our prayers, and answers our prayers. So I think that It's a Wonderful Life really points to the fact that it is a wonderful life when God shows up. And George needed to have some scales fall off his eyes. All his life, all he ever wanted to be was an architect and a builder. He was going to go to college, but he was frustrated. All he ever wanted to do was to build bridges and airports and skyscrapers. And that's what God wanted. God wanted George to be an architect and a builder. But he had different materials in mind from concrete, glass and steel. He had flesh and blood and bone and human spirit. And George was a brilliant architect and builder of communities, of people's individual lives and collectively as vibrant communities. George suddenly realized at the end that it is a wonderful life when God shows up. And my prayer for you today is to pray to God, talk to Him, tell Him your frustrations, tell Him your fears, tell Him your worries and your anxieties and so on. He loves to listen and He will answer your prayers, but He'll answer them the way that He wants to answer them, which is for your very, very best. It's a wonderful life when God shows up. When the scales fall from your eyes, when you see that everything that He's ever done for you is for your very best. It's a wonderful life. May God protect you from all harm during this coronavirus, sustain you, uphold you and support you, and may He show you His limitless, unconditional love. He loves you. God bless.